G'day and welcome back to Oz MTG. I'm your host Tim, and today I'm going to do an upgrade on the Forces of Imperium Warhammer 40,000 commander deck. So I like this deck. It's a very interesting deck. You can take it a lot of different ways. Both face commanders are cool. I think if you go with the Marinus Calgar, I think if you go with him more, it's going to be a bit harder to make. You got to put a bit more money into it, get like Anointed Procession and things that like double your tokens. Also put a lot more token makers into this deck. So I've gone with Inquisitor Greyfax. I like his vigilance, his buff ability. There's a lot of humans in this deck, so I think a little bit of human tribal will work well with him. And yeah, let's have a look at what we're going with. So this is a commander, vigilance, gives your other creatures vigilance +1/+0. Also, you can tap down a creature to get through and investigate. Yeah, cool ability, pretty cheap costing. I like him. Let's see what we're going to cut. So first off is obviously a vehicle. I do like the Knight Paladins. They're pretty cool. But problem is, it's just not cool enough in this deck. Then we've got the Reaver Titans, which is a great model. But yeah, just doesn't really work with what we're doing in this deck. Then we've got Thunderhawk Gunship, really cool again, but yeah, it doesn't want to work with this deck. Redemptor Dreadnought, it's a Astartes Dreadnought. I'm going more on the human side, so I'm dropping a few more of the Space Marines in favour of putting other humans in here to help buff them and get a bit more synergy. So unfortunately, that one's cut. Same thing again here. I don't really like this card that much. It's quite expensive. It's 5 mana for a 3/2. Does an interesting effect. Yeah, I mean, maybe in a warrior tribal it might be worth it, but this deck is really split between either being humans, Astartes, warriors, clerics, knights. There's a lot of subtypes there, and I just want to kind of rein it in a little bit. So yeah, we're cutting him. Grey Knight Paragon, unfortunately, one of my favourite armies. I was a Grey Knights player. Gotta cut ya. It's just not worth it in this deck. Thunderwolf Cavalry, same thing. Love them, but yeah, not going to work in this deck as well. Sangari Priest. It's interesting to see that they've tried to do like a bit of each of the factions. So you've got, yeah, your Thunderwolf Cavalry, so you got your Space Wolves, you've got your Grey Knights, you've got, this is obviously a Blood Angels, you can tell because of, well, his Sangari Priest, literally a model from that army. I wish that they kind of kept them back a little bit more and made this more of a, like an Imperial Guard army, because that's what it mainly is. Maybe with some Inquisitors mixed into it, and did like a separate deck for each one of these. They could have easily gotten away with that, or done an additional like Space Marines deck, which just put all the chapters into it, which could have been cool too. But yeah, unfortunately, I'm cutting a lot of these Space Marines out of it. So for the Emperor, it has a lot of weird sorcery cards that kind of work with either commander, but don't really work perfectly with either commander in here. So I've cut a lot of them out. +2/+2 Vigilance and Lifelink. Well, you're already getting Vigilance with your commander. Lifelink's nice and +2/+2. But it's only a sorcery. I'd rather put like an enchantment that buffs them, or an enchantment that gives them lifelink, or something like that in there. It's just not enough. Not enough value, I reckon. Collective Effort, same thing. Interesting, but I don't really think, unless you're going big with tokens, which the deck kind of doesn't really do. It's got some token synergy, but not a lot, so I don't think it's worth it in there. Fell the Mighty, cool board wipe, interesting. Kills all the big stuff, which is cool, but I would prefer, if I'm going to board wipe, I want to board wipe properly, or I still want a little bit more control over it, or I want it a bit cheaper. So yeah, there's plenty of white options that do what I want to do with this deck better than this one, so you're cut. Launch the Fleet, same thing. It's creating white soldier creature tokens, so it's not even creating anything that really works with the deck. It's creating tokens, which is cool, so if you want to go down the token route, great, this can work for you, but not for me in this deck. Hour of Reckoning, same thing again. I'm not really going token synergy. Yes, there is some in there. I've kept a lot of the squad mechanics in because it's cool, I like it, and if you got spare mana, just popping them out's cool. But yeah, it's not the way that I want to go down. Deploy at the front, same thing. it's very expensive for almost a finisher sort of card. I'd rather put a better finisher in there. Entrapment Maneuver, I've played this in a few decks. It never works very well. A lot of the times when people are attacking you, there's multiple creatures attacking you. One's usually like a 1/1 or something like that. Not that flash. I don't really like it. Flesh is weak. Weird card in this deck. Really weird. I don't know where they were going with this. Making your creatures artifacts. It would be really cool in like the Necrons deck. Really cool. But in this deck, it's weird. Really weird. So no, I would love to see a deck with this, and I'll probably make a deck to fit this into, but not in this deck. Crazy. Everflowing Chalice. It's a mana rock, but there's way better mana rocks out there. We'll put something better in. Inquisitorial Rosette. Interesting. I was on the bench. I didn't know whether to cut this or not. I like the attacking creatures get menace is nice, but I think it's just a little bit overcosted. I think I want something that's a bit more board wipe, a bit more synergy with what I'm doing. Yeah, weird card, but I cut it. Then we got the lands that we cut. I think I cut 2 extra lands from this deck. I think they're quite mana heavy in a lot of these decks. Also, the cards that I put in there have better synergy and cost reducers and things like that, or cheaper versions of cards. They do have a lot of high-end cards in here, 7 mana costs that I've cut out. So reducing the mana curve down, you can take a couple of the lands out and fit a few more interesting cards in there. So yeah, Ash Barrens, Tranquil Cove, Memory to Glory, Terramorphic Expanse, Scout Barrens. Yeah, let's just get through all these. There's a heap. There's a few plains and a few swamps and bits and pieces. There we go. Arcane Sanctum. Okay, so now we're on to the cards that I've added to the deck. So you're punching all the time. Sort of the Animus, great card in almost every deck. I know it's creeping up there in price now. They were cheaper when I picked these up originally. They have been reprinted. This is a commander one, so yeah, cool card. Good way to ramp in this deck because obviously it's not green, so you're not getting that ramp. Yeah, I like it for it. Another Signet, I went with a nice cheap 2 mana. I wanted a little bit more in the 2 mana slot, which is kind of where that sword sits and also the Signet sits. Yeah, put that in there. Oketra's Monument. Now, this is actually a sneakily good card in this deck. I went through and looked at the color identities, and nearly all the creatures have white in them. So this is actually great in this. It's creating a white warrior token, so it's not human, but it's creating tokens, which is cool. It can synergize with a few of the other cards in this deck. The cost reduction's great, and yeah, it will work in this deck reasonably well. We got Odric. Yeah, this is cool. You just get to choose how creatures block if you have enough attacking. Having First Strike with the Vigilance as well is really nice. It's a good sized body. It's a human too, so I've gone for a bit more human synergy. Cool card for it. Verge Rangers, another way to help you ramp a little bit better. It's not technically ramp, but it allows you to look at the top card, and then you can play lands from the top if opponents have more. So First Strike on a 3/3 for 3, which is really nice with that Vigilance. You're buffing it by +1. A lot of these like other abilities work really well with the deck. General's Enforcer, cool way to give your legendary humans indestructible, gives your commander a bit of protection, plus then you can use your graveyard too. There's not a lot of graveyard synergy in this deck, so exiling cards to get little dudes from it which are buffed by your commander, yeah, really cool synergy. This one's great. It's a 3/3 Death Toucher, and when it attacks you can reanimate, so it's a little bit of reanimation that I put in here, not a lot. It's a single card, so pretty decent. Frontline Medic, same thing. You can, when you attack, it's giving your creatures indestructible if you attack with enough, and then yeah, you can counter an X spell, which obviously doesn't really happen that often. I mean, if you're playing against Nids now, cool, can work for you, but the indestructible across your creatures, really cool with your commander, especially with Vigilance as well. Royal Assassin, so this is another way that I was looking with the deck, having it that you can use your tap abilities with your creatures, because your commander gives all your creatures Vigilance, obviously, which is nice. You don't need to tap them, but then having the option to be able to tap them later, I thought that's another route that you could possibly take this as well. There's not a lot of that synergy in the deck, but if you want to explore that, It's perfectly valid. So yeah, I put this little fella in, destroy target tapped creature, Royal Assassin. Cool card. Cool to kill something every now and then as well. Increasing devotions, get some humans, and then create even more with flashback. Cool card. Be able to make a lot of tokens with it. Then yeah, this is a fog, but it stops everything that's non-human sources. So cool for your deck. You can protect your guys, or if you want to swing in and go, haha, 2 mana, now my creatures don't get damaged. Yeah, works really well, and that's why I've gone more towards that human synergy. I think that's the way to go with this. Day of Judgment, 4 mana, destroy all creatures. Cool card. Way better ass than what's in here. Then we've got Return to Dust. Sometimes you just need to kill artifacts and enchantments that are stopping you. This should be in there. It's a great, great white card. Bastion of Remembrance. Now, you're going to encounter quite a few board wipes. You might even board wipe yourself. Being able to ping people, Blood Artist style. Also getting a human soldier, which goes into that synergy as well and works with your commander. Awesome. Yeah, good card. I love it. Path of the Bravery. I think this is going to be great in this deck. You can buff your creatures by +1/+1, or you can gain life equal to the number of attacking creatures. So gives you a little bit of life back, which is nice, but also some buff. It's only 3 mana, so it's nice and cheap. You can get it out early, start getting some value from it. Yeah, I think it's a pretty cool card for the deck. Then we've got almost a finisher. I've played this in a few decks, and it can end a game pretty quickly when you're getting double strike on your creatures. They've got vigilance as well, plus a buff, and lifelink. Like, it could make you win the game with this card. I think it's a lot better than some of those 7 mana cost cards that were in the original deck. Yeah, works really well. Reasonably cheap to buy too now. Cathar's Crusade, like, amazing. If you're playing a lot of creatures, if you're making tokens as well, buffs the crap out of them. Awesome. Good card. Flawless Maneuver. This is pretty expensive now. You don't have to put it in there. I have a few of the commander decks that this came in, so I just thought I'd chuck it in there. Giving your creatures indestructible is really cool. Helps you kill other people's creatures as well if they're blocking. And yeah, good card. Doesn't have to be in there if you don't want, if you want to put something else cheap in. Victimize, a little bit of graveyard synergy there if you're making a lot of tokens, which some of these cards do, and you want to get back some of those good cards from your graveyard. Victimize is always one of the best cards to do it with. Sudden Spoiling. Now, I think this is a sneaky good card because all your creatures are minimum 1/1s, then your commander buffs them up to 2/2s. Straight away, no matter what you're attacking, your creatures are going to trade, because if you're turning their creatures into 0/2s, you're going to kill all their creatures. So really cool card, really interesting. I think it's going to work really well. It's almost a removal spell in this deck. Mimic that. I mean, being able to reanimate other people's creatures is awesome. Being able to get your own creatures back for some value is awesome as well. I could have went down like the black full reanimation route, but I kind of wanted to go a little bit of a different way with this. I think Mimic that sort of helps fill that slot a little bit better. Then we've got some lands, so obviously Pain lands are cheaper now. We've got Temple, the Scry lands, they're cheap now. Castle Ardenvale, so you can get a human creature token with it, help fill up your board. Esper Panorama, better than your Evolving Wilds and stuff like that. Vault of the Archangel to give your creatures Death Touch and Lifelink. Really cool, really handy. You got Vigilance creatures coming in with Death Touch and Lifelink. Are you going to block them? A lot of these have First Strike too, which work well. Maul and Haunt, another way to use your graveyard as well, so you can exile a creature card to get a White Spirit creature token. Yeah, okay, it's not a human, but you are getting extra things. It flies too, it's not one of those ground spirits, so you can get through. Obscure Storefront, upgrade to your Evolving Wilds again, comes in, you gain a life, same thing, not too bad. Then we've got the Bounce Land cycle. Like I say in a lot of these videos, they're great. They're so underplayed. They're so cheap. In Commander, they work so well, especially if you're shorting yourself lands. These can be great to help fit in, to slot that, to allow you to pull just a couple of lands out to put extra cards in. So you've got all 3 there. And yeah, so we're going to do some gameplay videos of these unmodified versus my modifications. So if you want to see some of them, subscribe, hit the like, and yeah, you'll get notified of when all the new videos come out. So I'll see you then.